Good morning. Rain stopped play. Actually, beautiful, lovely, gentle drizzle here. In Alnwick, Northumbria, England. I am a Christian. Christ's message was exclusively of love. If they strike you on one cheek, turn unto them the other cheek. And that applies in the individual, and as far as I'm concerned, to the whole world. So I listened to Hard Talk again this morning at 4:30. Stephen Sacker on the BBC, very good journalist, interviewing the deputy head minister of Ukraine. Boy, is she a hard woman. Wow. They want their breakfast. Cheeky Birdie yesterday, I had the window open and I found this little tiny red ball. Sorry to digress, but it was so sweet. It was just sort of sitting there on the window ledge. And Birdie obviously had a little young fledgling blackbird, so still brown, had his eye on it and zipped in and zipped out again, went off with my ball. I took a picture. It was so sweet. So, my father fought on the Somme in the First World War for the Royal Norfolks from King's Lynn. They were my father's family. My mother's brothers in the kilts in the Second World War. Scottish. I had a missionary ancestor, William Ross, who trained with Dr. David Livingstone and then went out to Southern Africa. But anyway, there they were in their full kit, fighting in the Second World War. I, in fact, was training as a pilot through the Royal Air Force when I was a youngster, when I was 17 years old. I didn't go into the Royal Air Force, but if I'd been around, no doubt, in 1940, etc., I would have been... I'm a gifted physical specimen, so I would have been a very good Spitfire pilot. The war to end all wars, the Second World War. What's happened? Look at history. All mankind's history, anywhere in the world, European or otherwise, it's about territory, land more often than not, property, money, wealth. Wealth is in God, for heaven's sake. All this woman could do, the deputy head minister of Ukraine, and she's young. Well, I'm reaching an age now at 65 when everyone starts to look young, or most people do anyway. I met such a nice lady on the bus yesterday. She'd walked the whole, she just looked the part with her walking canes and so on. A little very neat rucksack on her back, but she'd walked the whole of the coastal paths of the whole of Britain, Scotland included. It's a long way. I think it's over 7,000 miles. All they want is more weapons. I've got I'm naturally, instinctively empathetic with Russia because of the sufferings they have endured over the decades, from the Russian Revolution and before. If you go back to the Tsar Peter the Great, I think 1600s, I don't know, I'm just have a vague knowledge of the world's history, but Ukraine, someone reminded me, or I didn't really know, was part of Russia from the 1930s. If one looks at the map of the NATO countries now, it started off on the sort of western side, obviously, with America, Britain, France, and so on. It's right up there against the borders of Russia now. And then this man, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, was interviewed by the BBC Moscow correspondent, who, to my ear, speaks remarkably good Russian, which I suppose he has to. But anyway, it was interesting just to hear him talking in English, explaining. But he was obviously interviewing Sergei Lavrov in Russian. Probably old Lavrov can speak English too, but anyway, out of respect, no doubt, speak their home language. Tough old what's it? But from the Russian perspective, the West is advancing. If you listen to some of these American types, the gung-ho ones, that's exactly what they want. Yeah, well, Napoleon tried to take Moscow. So it's just a bit too big, that old bear. Basically, Lavrov said, bring it on. You try and bring Russia down. Bring it on, he says. You, the West. Stuff you, basically. We are Russian. This is our motherland. And Ukraine was part of the USSR for quite a period. There are Ukrainian people within the borders of that country who are essentially Russian, allegiance to Russia. So it's the most horrid mess, but both sides purport to be Christian, same as the First World War. What did they do on the Somme? Oh, please. I mean, the classic Blackadder sketch on this is, one of them says to old Blackadder, and how far did you advance? And the guy says, about a foot. And what scale was your map? The guy says, no, that's as far as we advanced, a foot. They just sat on the Somme there, blowing the hell out of each other. Over what? What did it achieve? What did it prove? So the West hasn't learned. No one seems to have learned anything. There are voices, I think notably Holland, declining to participate full bore with the Ukrainian perspective. We in the West are getting bombarded with the stuff the Russians are doing. Who invented the big wing in the Second World War? We went and absolutely splattered Dresden, the West. The bomber Harris, it was known as, I think, sent out 1,000 planes and created this firestorm that wiped out Dresden. God knows all of these things. Christ came to give us, mankind, all of us, the opportunity to rise out of our baser selves and to aspire to Christ's likeness. Amen. And that absolutely has to be, you forgive those who persecute you. You do not respond with violence. I personally spoke to the former Archbishop of the Church of England. I was still in my kilt then at the Cathedral and Abbey Church of St Albans. back in the 90s, I was looking long and hard and becoming a priest, in fact, through the Church of England. Very high church, Church of England. He was a tank commander in the Second World War, apparently the only archbishop who's ever actually killed anyone. And he says we use the Old Testament to justify a holy war. Christ didn't. Yes, the Old Testament does have a lot of God's chosen people, the history of the Jews, the Hebrews, the Israelites, and there is a lot of murder and mayhem and wiping out the Amalekites and the Gizites and all that sort of stuff. That is there for anyone to read in the Old Testament. And then Christ came to bring us the new covenant, and the new covenant is essentially the two commandments. So love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Amen. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So Christ came to fulfill the law. In that context, the law is the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, the rules God gave through Moses to his chosen people, the Israelites, the Jews, the Hebrews. At the moment, the focus is clearly on Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, all of that. There is little mention in the news of the Holy Land, Palestine, Israel. To any rabbi worth their salt, what is now a physical fact, that land, what is constituted now is the state of Israel, in fact, is against God's will. I specifically know one rabbi who can elaborate on this. God's chosen people, the Israelites, the Jews, the Hebrews, should only have returned to that land, God's chosen people, the Holy Land, at the second coming of Christ. And this specific rabbi, but he's not alone, there's quite a whole group of them. They live in sort of North London. Makes it absolutely clear what should be happening is, to be true to God, you should leave Israel. A Jew should leave that occupied land because they've jumped the gun. Christ clearly has not. Ooh, he's a big lad. Where's my breakfast? Yeah, it gives me such pleasure, the birdies. I think that's a rook. There's a whole pack of them. What a birdies, flock of them, birdies. So, we're heading for Armageddon. Mankind, clearly of itself, just seems incapable of learning from history. That just, to me, is blindingly obvious. No music today. It's too serious, this stuff. People are dying. Bigger weapons, greater power to kill. bigger implications, the economies of the world, food shortages, energy supply shortages, all of it. It's all interrelated. If they strike you on one cheek, give unto them the other cheek. Amen.